Welcome, Community Church family. We are here recording this podcast to be able to talk a little bit about Community Christian Academy. So as you're well aware, this has been a work in progress for some time, and yet, given the scale and the work that's been done, it has been extremely fast moving. And so we are here today to talk a little bit about the school, but really more to talk about our principal, Ashley Siqueiros. I don't even know if I got that right. I jokingly with Ashley, I always struggle with the name, and as you shouldn't. So I'm going to let her say it the right way so that you actually know how to do it correctly. So Ashley, help me pronounce your last name.
Sure. So it's Ashley Siqueiros. It's 4 different Spanish words. Fun fact.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What are the words?
Si means if when it has no accent. K means that. Ir means go, and os means you guys. Really makes no sense, but
it's a way to remember it.
It is.
That would help people be more fluent with it than I am.
Yeah. Siqueiros.
So thought this would be really helpful for us to get to know Ashley a little bit. Ashley has been with the church for a couple of years now. So I'm going to ask her a little bit about her just family background. I'm going to ask about her faith background, and we'll get into some of the school topics. So with that, Ashley, it's been great to get to know you. You started coming to the church well before we thought about having a school. And so it's been fun to watch God work and orchestrate, and he's been dictating a lot of what we do. So we're just trying to follow along. But I think for the people that haven't had the chance to know you, give me a little bit of your family history. We know you're married and have kids. And so give me some specifics.
Sure. So I got married to my husband in 2013, and we have 4 beautiful children together, spanning ages from 11 to 11 months. She's going to be 1 soon. So
time flies.
Time does fly.
Yeah. Yep. And your husband is Adrian.
My husband is Adrian, yep.
And we see him around the church, and so we are very grateful for his friendly face.
Yes, and he just got baptized a couple months ago at the last baptismal
That's right.
service, so that was good.
That's awesome. So how long have you guys been at Community?
Sure. So we started at Community, I think it must have been in 2022. And yeah, we heard that you guys might plant a second campus, and so we wanted to get to know what Community was all about before you did that, and we started attending West Bend, and I think we fell in love with not only the people, but, the biblically sounded preaching.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's been great to have you, and you and your family, your mom all live close.
Yes,
right?
very close.
So it's nice that all of this, again, when we talk about God put us out in a cornfield, right? And we don't always know why, and we don't always know what's happening. We just try to be obedient, and yet even in that, He's been orchestrating, and so we're thankful for that. So a little bit beyond Community Church. So when did you come to Christ? How many years have you been a believer in Christ? Kind of give us a little bit of that family background.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting because my history, relationship with the church has been lifelong, but it's been, up and down. And I feel like I probably stepped away a little bit from the church, but God always has a plan, and He came crashing back into my life around 2017. And in 2020, I got baptized, and it was really good. I had a foundation. My parents are believers as well. And so I had a solid foundation, but I just, God still had a lot of work left to do with me until that point. So then after that, we were attending a church in Brookfield, and we were attending actually a Hispanic ministry up until we moved to Community. So really that was a big change. My husband, his first language is Spanish. So we had a lot of conversation around if we were ready to transition to an English-speaking church or not. But we're so thankful that we, God prepared us appropriately.
Yep. you are fluent in Spanish, and so which amazing again when we talk about school resource, but just for you and your family to make that big, not just a language shift, but it's a significant cultural shift, right? We do church very differently, and so when you have those big cultural changes, and so we're thankful that God has helped you move through some of those things and make you feel comfortable here at Community. And so I know that you typically attend North, very well loved here by the family here, and so it's just good.
Yeah.
So we've got some faith, and I should also say you talked about kind of walking away from the church, and that's so normal in our culture. It's actually it's normal back when you watch the biblical historical events that happen.
Yeah.
Like you watched a lot of people struggle through faith throughout their lives, and so usually we call it crisis sanctification or progressive sanctification. This idea that sometimes it takes major things, big events, takes things for God to kind of grab us, shake us, for us to say, I need this, and to give us a stronger biblical worldview. And that's one thing that we hope within the school context that we can do, and I this might be the wrong word, but that we can do a better job than what currently is happening, even within private Christian schools. Our focus is really around this idea of foundational worldview and trying to teach our kids from an early age the difference between the two, a biblical worldview and just a worldly worldview. And so that when those points of crisis come, you got a strong biblical worldview from your parents. You were raised that way. Not all the kids have that advantage in today's culture. And even in our schools, even in private Christian education, sometimes the focus is still on education, which isn't bad, but rather than building an education of a Christian or a biblical worldview. And so that's something that's extremely important to us. And one of the things that we really believed our job in opening a school, the call we've been given, is not to just have another private Christian education, right? But to truly have something that would be a little different. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about classical education. I believe I'm going to check with my boss. I think we're going to do a podcast on classical education. So we'll do that at another time. But that's really what the overarching point is. So we believe that God called us to open a church here. We believe he sent people to us, both students, parents, educators. We believe that he's prepared and equipped us. He brought us into a school. We just want to be good stewards of all of that. So you talk about your family and you talk about your faith background. Give a little bit of your professional background. So how long have you been teaching? You're currently teaching where? A little bit of educational background.
Sure. So I've been teaching for 10 years. This is actually my 10th year right now. And I'm currently teaching at Lomira High School. I'm teaching high school Spanish. I have all of high school Spanish at the high school. So it's really fun to really get to know the kids. So many times at any school, high school or otherwise, you have the students for 1 year and then they go on to the next person and you never really get to build relationships with kids. And that's one thing that I love about working at the high school that I work at now, but that's one thing that I'm so excited about working at Community Christian Academy is building those long-lasting relationships with kids over the years that they'll be able to be here so that we can help them to navigate some of those more difficult points of their life through a biblical worldview.
Yeah. So what is your educational background? So degrees you've pursued and what's prepared you for this?
Yeah. Interestingly, I did not go to school for education. Both of my degrees are business degrees, even my master's degree. So my bachelor's degree is a Bachelor of Business Administration, and it was for accounting and Spanish. After I got out of college, I started in accounting. I worked in a public accounting firm for 3 years, and then God had different plans. And then I started long-term subbing, which I was able to do because my second major was in Spanish. So in the state of Wisconsin, you can actually get a teaching job, if you majored or minored in the content area that you're teaching. Okay. So that opened up that opportunity, which was really great because I had just had my second daughter. So I was able to pick up sub jobs when I could. so that's kind of how I got my feet wet in education. And then it's really amazing how God works, because I had a couple of long-term sub positions, and language teachers are hard to come by, especially in the state of Wisconsin.
Yep.
So it wasn't difficult to find work. There was always something. My first full-time job, my full year, academic year job, was in the West Bend schools. I worked at the high school for a year, and it was really difficult. It was probably the most difficult year of my life, work-wise. And that's coming off of public accounting, so that's saying something. So anyway, I got to the end of that school year. I was approaching the end of that school year, and I quit before this end of the school year. And I said, well, maybe this is not what God had in mind for me, because this is not working out.
Right.
And I didn't want to find another teaching job. I wanted to be done. And the last thing that I did on my school-issued computer the last day of school was I applied for one job. And then, so that was a Friday. Yep. Then on Saturday, my third daughter was born. And on Monday, they called me and said, we want to interview you. And I said, well, that's great, but I just had a baby. And they said, we'll do it over the phone.
No time like the present.
Nope.
Right?
So then I interviewed there, and they hired me right away. And then I was there for 4 years until I went to Lomira. And like I said, it's really interesting how God works, because, you know, you wouldn't have anticipated that that's how my career trajectory would go. Yep. But in addition, all of those things happening in the way that they did led me to the master's program that I attended in order to get my, it's a Master's of Business Administration for Education Leadership. And that was through MSOE. So my last year in Sheboygan Falls, I was there for 4 years. My last year in Sheboygan Falls, the superintendent of 30 plus years retired the year before. And so we got a new superintendent, and she was advertising this program during COVID because they were low enrollment. And so they were offering these huge scholarships to do this program. So again, complete coincidence that it even happened, coincidence, right?
Yep.
That I even got connected with this program. And then again, a complete coincidence
Right.
that I ended up in Lomira, where I learned about this. The German teacher who works in the classroom next to me was attending community church already. So that's how I even heard. So again, when you look at all of these things and you look back and you're like, wow, there's no way that we could have planned this. Zero possibility. Yep. So it's just really cool to look back and to really see God's hand moving in all of these things.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think we sometimes get so caught up in what we think we need to be doing that we kind of lose the forest for the trees a little bit. Mm-hmm. And, when we step back, the whole process here began with a small group of people saying, hey, we've planted a church in a school. Do we think that means something? And where we really started was even Ozaki Christian School, which I have a great relationship with as a church. And so started talking to them about, hey, do you want to launch a site here? And for various reasons, it wasn't something that was feasible at the time. And so we just kept praying through it and trying to understand what God wanted us to do. And then as we started talking to more and more people, it was, hey, this is like, when we were talking, I'm in the process of finishing up this MSOE business administration degree, and along with educational leadership. And it's like, okay, so keep talking, God, right? We're starting to see a path form. Yeah. And then we went down the view of classical education, which again is a story in and of itself of how we kind of landed there, and the people at the church who had good backgrounds, and also family members who were leading other classical education schools throughout the country. And just really interesting how God was orchestrating and ordaining the work. And so I'm excited. I'm excited to have you lead the school, excited to watch you shine in a leadership role for the school. I look at the things that have already been done, which most most people have no idea of. But you currently have your full-time job is with Lomira Schools. You've got about 17 part-time jobs that you do. I won't have you get into all of those things that you're using your skills and abilities to further. But then the amount of time and energy you've put into this work. And one of the things that for me was kind of a critical decision-making piece of information in saying that Ashley's the right person for the school is just your passion for the school before you knew that you would be staff of the school, right? So this wasn't a matter of, oh, here's an opportunity that I might be able to lead a school. It was, no, I believe in the vision, and I believe this is something that's going to benefit my kids and my family, and I want to support this. And then you just poured yourself into it. And from there, it just kind of became a natural for you to be the principal of the school. So again, just thankful for the heart that God's given you in it. It's apparent and evident. So with having said that, can you share a little bit about just the joy of teaching, right? One thing that we're underpinning this whole conversation is in understanding the joy of the Lord, understanding how to glorify him in all things. And so how might you bring this aspect of joy into education, the idea of keeping God at the center of what we do as you train up children in the next generation?
Yeah, that's a really great question. That's another thing that I'm excited about too. I work in a system right now that it's a chore. Learning is a chore. And it's really difficult to try and convince children that they should do their chores. So it's just with the level of apathy in public education, and it's just getting really hard. I'm so excited to work with children from little on and instill in them a love of learning, because quite honestly, as Christians, that's something that's so important, because we can never learn everything in anything that we do. Like even experts in their field still have so much to learn. Yeah. So helping children realize that learning only brings you closer to God, and understanding that all learning is united under God is really something that I'm so excited about in this school, just because honestly, that's something that is hugely lacking in every other educational situation in which I've worked. And I can't even put words to how much that's going to make a difference for me as an educator, but for students, for my own children, for your children, for everybody's children who will attend this school, and just to help them see my joy and my love for learning through my teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you said it, right? We'll never stop learning. God gave us brains. He made us thinking beings, right, with the intention that we would learn and know more. And he calls us to know him more. And so every time that we open up a reality for us in the science world, or a new way to understand math, or a new language that we absorb, it's a way for us to understand more of the glory of God. It's a way for us to understand more about how he made us and how diverse he is in this world, and all the things that we just don't know. And if we are trying to understand more of who God is, the more that we learn, even just the things around us, it's his creation. The more we learn of his creation, the more we learn of the order of things, allows us to be drawn closer to him. And I think that's the one thing that we've separated so much, is the idea of education and the idea of Christ, even in Christian schools. And what we're trying to do is bring that back together and say that everything is for his glory. And one thing we talked early on, I wasn't able to go, but some of you went to a couple of classical education schools. And one of the differences that you noticed between a couple of the schools was this idea of joy, right? That the educators, the staff, everybody in there brought this joy, and then you saw it in the kids. And so there's a joy and a passion for learning. There's a joy and a passion for Christ. There's a joy and a passion for each other. And so that's really our desires. We can be transactional, and we can just give information to our kids That isn't what we're trying to do.
Right.
What we're trying to do is share the information, teach them how to think, teach them how to understand more of who God is. And we need a leader who can do that. And so I believe that God's called you into that role. He's called you to bring that to the children and help us equip not just the kids, but the families. And ultimately, this is, for us as church leaders, is about discipling the church family. And so we want to continue to do that well. It's not just a matter of discipling our seniors or our young adults or our men or women. These are kids. And right now, again, I'll point to my boss, but Ashley Vorwerk does an amazing job Sunday mornings and trying to do other programs, like about VBS and other ways in which we can impact our kids. But they spend a lot of hours in school.
Yeah.
And so if we can reclaim that time for God, for building the foundation, we believe that's the best model. And so I'm excited about what's going to continue to happen. Excited to watch you. I think of all the time that you've spent talking to families and encouraging them and answering their questions and thinking about enrollment and volunteers and future staff. All the time that will be spent getting the school up and running. It's all been fruitful work. And it will continue, I think, to surprise us. Most people can probably put the pieces together, but I'll say that the decision to leave the public school world and enter into something like this is a very difficult decision, right? On one hand, it's like, well, it's easy because I want my kids and my family and I want to be more connected to Christ. But there's also realities of, I hate to tell everyone, but we don't pay what the public school system does. And you're sacrificing to be here because you believe this is where God is calling you to be. And so again, I just want to thank you and your family, Adrian, the kids, for all sacrificing in that way for the glory of God, so that we as a church family might continue to raise up a new generation of Christians. So, Ashley, thank you. Welcome not just to the church, you've been here a while, but welcome to Community Christian Academy, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode in this podcast series about Community Christian Academy. We're going to publish 8 to 10 of these, talking about things like classical education and where we go from here, introduce you to some of our board members, and just help you to be a little more comfortable with what we're trying to do here at Community Christian Academy, because this isn't about a school. This is about community church and about how we work together to disciple one another. And so we don't want to separate church and school. We actually want to bring them together in a unique way. And so I invite you to join us. If you have other things that you would like to know about, please let Ashley Vorwerk know and we'll get those incorporated. So thank you very much for listening.